my friends, that you move carefully. The greatest tragedy in life is not death. The greatest tragedy is a life without discipline. Because a life without discipline is a life without purpose. And a life without purpose is a life that drifts. And anything that drifts will eventually crash. You are not created to drift. You were designed to dominate your environment, to govern your choices, and to manage your life with intention. But let me tell you something most people don't want to hear. Winning in life is not natural. Discipline is not comfortable. And greatness is not convenient. If you want to win every day, then you must submit yourself to principles that are often painful, uncomfortable, and even brutal. Because discipline does not negotiate with your feelings, it demands your obedience. Let me give you 5 brutal ways to discipline your life. And if you can embrace these, your life will never remain the same. Mastering your mornings is not just about waking up early. It is about taking authority over your life before the world attempts to dictate it for you. You see, most people don't fail because they lack talent or opportunity. They fail because they surrender the first and most powerful hours of their day to randomness. And whatever you surrender in the morning, you will struggle to reclaim for the rest of the day. The morning is more than a time on the clock. It is a sacred window of dominion. It is the moment when your mind is most impressionable, your spirit most receptive, and your focus most undivided. And if you do not intentionally design that moment, then distractions will design it for you. Messages, notifications, noise, and demands will rush in. And before you realize it, you are no longer living your day. You are reacting to it. That is why discipline begins the moment your eyes open. The first battle you fight every day is not with your job, your responsibilities, or your circumstances. It is with your bed. And if you lose that battle, you set a precedent for defeat. Because the act of waking up when you said you would is not just a physical action. It is a declaration of authority. It is you telling your body, your emotions, and your mind that you are in charge. Understand this. Every time you hit the snooze button, you are training yourself to delay responsibility. You are reinforcing a habit of avoidance. And over time, that small act begins to shape your character. You begin to procrastinate, not just in the morning, but in your goals, your decisions, and your purpose. But when you wake up with intention, when you rise at the time you committed to, you are building integrity with yourself. You are proving that your word matters, even when no one else is watching. And that is the foundation of discipline. Now, once you are awake, the question becomes, what do you do next? Because waking up early without purpose is just extended time for distraction. Many people wake up and immediately reach for their phones. They scroll through social media, check messages, consume other people's thoughts, and absorb other people's priorities. And in doing so, they allow the world to program their mind before they have had the chance to program it themselves. That is a dangerous habit, because whatever enters your mind first has a powerful influence over your thoughts for the rest of the day. If the first thing you consume is negativity, comparison, or noise, then your mind begins to operate from that state. Your focus is scattered, your energy is diluted, your direction becomes unclear. But disciplined individuals do the opposite. They guard their mornings. They understand that the mind must be fed intentionally, just like the body. So instead of consuming random information, they choose to invest in clarity. They spend time in silence, in reflection, in learning, and in planning. They take control of their mental environment before stepping into the external world. Silence in the morning is powerful because in silence, you can hear yourself think. You can evaluate where you are, where you want to go, and what must be done. You can align your actions with your purpose instead of drifting through the day without direction. You see, many people are busy, but they are not productive. They are active, but they are not effective. And the difference lies in clarity. Clarity is born in quiet moments when you take time in the morning to think, to reflect, and to plan. You are not wasting time. You are investing in precision. You are ensuring that every action you take during the day has intention behind it. And the intention is what separates effort from impact. After you have centered your mind, the next step is to define your day. A disciplined morning always includes a plan. If you do not decide what your day will look like, then your day will be decided for you. Other people's demands, unexpected distractions, and urgent but unimportant tasks will fill your time. And by the end of the day, you will feel exhausted but unfulfilled. Why? Because you were busy achieving other people's priorities instead of your own. Planning your day is an act of leadership. It is you stepping into the role of a manager, not just of tasks, but of your life. It is you saying, this is what matters today, and this is where my energy will go. And here is where discipline becomes brutal, because planning requires honesty. You must be honest about what truly matters. You must be honest about what you have been avoiding. You must be honest about your distractions. And once you identify your priorities, discipline demands that you commit to them, regardless of how you feel later in the day. Because feelings will change, but your plan must remain. Now, beyond the mental and strategic aspect, there is also a physical dimension to mastering your mornings. Your body is a tool, and like any tool, it must be activated. When you wake up, your body is transitioning from rest to activity. And if you do not intentionally energize it, you will carry sluggishness into your day. That is why movement in the morning is essential. Whether it is stretching, walking, exercising, or simply engaging your body in motion, it sends a signal that the day has begun. It increases your energy, sharpens your focus, and prepares you to operate at a higher level. Discipline is not just about controlling your mind. It is about aligning your body with your purpose, because a tired body will resist even the strongest intentions. Another critical aspect of mastering your mornings is protecting your focus. The early hours of the day are when your mind is at its peak. Your ability to concentrate, to think deeply, and to solve problems is at its highest. And yet, most people waste this peak on low-value activities. They check emails, they respond to messages, they engage in distractions, and by the time they get to meaningful work, their energy has already been depleted. That is a misuse of potential. Discipline requires that you prioritize high-value tasks in your peak hours. The most important work, the work that moves your life forward, should be done when your mind is fresh, not when it is fatigued. This is what separates winners from the average. Winners do not just work hard, they work smart. They align their most important tasks with their highest energy levels. They understand that not all hours are equal, and they treat their mornings as a strategic advantage. But let me tell you something else. Mastering your mornings is not easy. It will challenge you. There will be days when you feel tired, days when you lack motivation, days when your bed feels more attractive than your purpose. And in those moments, discipline becomes a test. Because it is easy to wake up early when you feel good. It is easy to follow a routine when you are motivated. But true discipline is revealed when you don't feel like it. When you wake up anyway, when you stick to your routine anyway, when you choose purpose over comfort anyway, that is when transformation happens. Because every time you win the morning battle, you are not just improving your day, you are strengthening your character. You are becoming someone who does what must be done regardless of circumstances. And over time, this compounds. One disciplined morning may not seem significant, but repeated over weeks, months, and years, it changes your life. It builds momentum. And momentum is powerful, because once you start your day with discipline, everything else becomes easier. You carry that sense of control, that sense of achievement into the rest of your day. You make better decisions. You stay focused. You operate with intention. But if you lose your morning, you spend the rest of the day trying to recover. You feel behind. You feel reactive. You feel out of control. That is why mastering your mornings is not optional. It is essential. It is the foundation upon which your entire life is built. So be brutal with your mornings. Set a time and honor it. Create a routine and protect it. Guard your mind and feed it intentionally. Plan your day and commit to it. Move your body and activate your energy. Because the way you start your day determines the way you live your life. And if you can discipline your mornings, you will begin to notice something powerful. You are no longer chasing the day. The day begins to follow you. And that is how you start winning. Choosing discipline over comfort is one of the most difficult and most transformative decisions you will ever make in your life. Because at its core, this is not just about actions. It is about identity. It is about deciding who is in control, you or your feelings. You see, comfort is seductive. It speaks softly, gently, convincingly. It tells you rest a little longer. You deserve it. It whispers, skip the work today. You can always do it tomorrow. It convinces you that ease is harmless. But what comfort never tells you is the cost. Because every time you choose comfort over discipline, you are making a silent sacrifice. You are sacrificing your growth. You are sacrificing your potential. You are sacrificing the future you say you want. And the tragedy is, this comfort feels good in the moment, but it produces pain in the long run. Discipline, on the other hand, feels painful in the moment, but it produces freedom in the future. So the question is not whether you will experience pain. The question is, which pain will you choose? The pain of discipline or the pain of regret? Most people choose comfort without realizing they are also choosing regret. They wait until they feel motivated. They wait until the conditions are right. They wait until the moment feels perfect. But let me tell you something clearly: if you wait for motivation, you will be waiting for the rest of your life. Motivation is unreliable. It is emotional. It fluctuates. One day you feel strong, the next day you feel weak. One day you are excited, the next day you are tired. If your actions are tied to your emotions, then your progress will always be inconsistent. But discipline is different. Discipline is a decision. It says, I will act regardless of how I feel. It separates your behavior from your emotions. It establishes a standard that does not change based on your mood. And that is what gives you power. Because now your life is no longer controlled by temporary feelings. It is governed by permanent principles. Understand this deeply. Your feelings are not designed to lead your life. They are designed to respond to it. If you allow your feelings to dictate your actions, then you will always choose what is easy, what is familiar, and what is comfortable. But growth does not exist in comfort zones. Progress does not happen in convenience. Everything valuable requires effort. Everything meaningful requires sacrifice. Everything great demands discipline. When you begin to understand this, you stop negotiating with yourself. You stop asking, do I feel like doing this? And you start declaring, this must be done. And that shift is powerful. Because the moment you remove negotiation, you eliminate delay. You eliminate excuses. You eliminate the internal debate that drains your energy before you even begin. Let me explain something about excuses. Excuses are not real obstacles, they are mental constructions. They are stories you tell yourself to justify inaction. And the more you entertain them, the stronger they become. I'm too tired. I don't have time. I'll start tomorrow. These are not facts. They are decisions disguised as reasons. Because if something truly matters to you, you will find a way. And if it does not, you will find an excuse. Discipline exposes your priorities. It reveals what you truly value, not by what you say, but by what you do. If you say you want success, but you choose comfort daily, then success is not your priority. Comfort is. If you say you want change, but you avoid discomfort, then you are not committed. You are interested. And there is a difference between interest and commitment. When you are interested, you do what is convenient. When you are committed, you do whatever it takes. Commitment does not ask for permission from your feelings. It does not wait for ideal circumstances. It moves forward regardless. Now, here is where discipline becomes truly brutal. You must learn to act even when it feels unnatural. Your body will resist. Your mind will protest. Your emotions will rebel because you are stepping outside of your six quash, your six, your that's eight stakes, six quash, your habits, your patterns, and your system is designed to protect what is familiar, even if what is familiar is not beneficial. That is why change feels uncomfortable. That is why growth feels difficult, because you are breaking patterns that have been reinforced over time. But understand, this discomfort is not a sign that something is wrong. It is a sign that something is changing. When you feel resistance, it means you are pushing beyond your current limits. It means you are expanding your capacity. It means you are growing. So instead of avoiding discomfort, you must embrace it. You must begin to see discomfort as a necessary part of your development. When the work feels hard, do it anyway. When you feel tired, show up anyway. When you feel like quitting, push forward anyway. because those moments are defining moments. They are the moments where discipline is either strengthened or weakened. Every time you choose discipline over comfort, you are building mental toughness. You are increasing your capacity to endure. You are becoming more resilient, more focused, more determined. And over time, what was once difficult becomes normal. What was once uncomfortable becomes ace, smog becomes your this smoke becomes your becomes your this is how transformation happens, not in one big decision, but in many small decisions made consistently over time. Now, let me speak to another dimension of comfort that many people overlook, the comfort of familiarity. Sometimes, comfort is not about rest or ease. Sometimes, it is about staying in situations that are known, even if they are limiting. Staying in environments that do not challenge you. Staying in routines that do not grow you. Staying in relationships that do not support your purpose. Why? Because it is comfortable, it is predictable, it is safe, it does not require change. But if you remain in comfort zones, you will also remain in limitation. Discipline sometimes requires you to step into the unknown, to take risks, to try new things, to leave behind what is familiar in order to pursue what is meaningful. And that is not easy, because the unknown brings uncertainty, and uncertainty brings fear. But let me tell you something, fear is not your enemy. It is an indicator. It shows you where growth is required. It points you toward areas where you must expand. So instead of running from fear, you must learn to move through it. Because on the other side of fear is growth. On the other side of discomfort is transformation. On the other side of discipline is freedom. Yes, freedom. Because discipline is not restriction, it is liberation. When you discipline your actions, you gain control over your life. You are no longer controlled by impulses, distractions, or temporary desires. You become intentional. You become focused. You become effective. Think about it this way. A person who lacks discipline is controlled by their habits. A person who has discipline controls their habits. And whoever controls the habits controls the outcome. So if you want to change your life, you must change your habits. And if you want to change your habits, you must choose discipline over comfort daily. Not once, not occasionally, but consistently. This is not about perfection. It is about persistence. There will be days when you fall short, days when you make mistakes, days when comfort wins. But discipline is not about never failing. It is about never quitting. It is about getting back up, refocusing, realigning, and continuing forward. Because success is not determined by one decision, it is determined by patterns. And patterns are built through repetition. So every day you are casting votes. Votes for the person you want to become, or votes for the person you used to be. Every time you choose discipline, you are voting for growth. Every time you choose comfort, you are voting for stagnation. And over time, those votes accumulate. They shape your identity. They determine your future. So be brutal with your comfort. Do not entertain it. Do not negotiate with it. Do not allow it to dictate your decisions. Train yourself to act with purpose, not preference. Because your preferences will keep you where you are, but your purpose will take you where you are meant to be. And when you master this principle, when you truly learn to choose discipline over comfort, you unlock a level of consistency, focus, and power that most people never experience. You become dangerous in the best way, because now nothing can stop you, not even yourself. And that is how you win. Controlling your environment is one of the most underestimated yet most powerful forms of discipline you will ever exercise. Because whether you realize it or not, your environment is constantly shaping your behavior, influencing your thinking, and directing your life. You may believe you're in control of your choices, but if your environment is not aligned with your purpose, then your choices will slowly begin to align with your surroundings instead. You see, human beings are adaptive by nature. We absorb what is around us. We reflect what we are exposed to. And over time, we become a product of our environment, not because we are weak, but because we are designed to respond to influence. That is why discipline is not only about controlling yourself, it is about controlling what controls you. If you are serious about winning every day, then you must take a hard, honest look at your environment. Not just your physical space, but your social environment, your digital environment, and your mental environment. Because all of these are feeding you, shaping you, and directing you, whether you are conscious of it or not. Let us begin with your physical environment. The space you live and work in is not neutral. It either supports your discipline or sabotages it. A cluttered space produces a cluttered mind. A disorganized environment creates distraction. When your surroundings are chaotic, your focus becomes scattered and your productivity declines. You may try to concentrate, you may try to work, you may try to stay disciplined, but your environment is working against you. Discipline, therefore, requires order. When you intentionally create a clean, structured, and organized space, you are not just improving your surroundings. You are reinforcing clarity in your mind. You are reducing friction. You are making it easier to focus, easier to act, and easier to remain consistent. A disciplined environment removes unnecessary decisions, because every time you have to search for something, every time you are distracted by disorder, every time your attention is pulled in multiple directions, you are losing energy. And energy is a limited resource. So be brutal with your space. Remove what does not serve you. Organize what remains. Create an environment that supports your goals, not one that competes with them. Now, let us move beyond the physical and into the social environment, the people you surround yourself with. This is where discipline becomes even more challenging, because sometimes the greatest distractions are not things, they are people. The individuals you spend time with have a profound influence on your mindset, your habits, and your standards. Their conversations become your thoughts. Their attitudes become your perspective. Their habits begin to shape your behavior. If you are constantly around people who lack ambition, you will begin to normalize mediocrity. If you are surrounded by negativity, you will start to think negatively. If the people in your circle do not value growth, discipline, and purpose, then over time, neither will you. This is not about judgment, it is about awareness. You must recognize that not everyone is aligned with your direction, and if you are not careful, you will allow relationships to pull you away from your purpose instead of pushing you toward it. Discipline requires courage. It requires you to evaluate your associations and make difficult decisions. Sometimes it means limiting your time with certain people. Sometimes it means creating distance. And in some cases, it means letting go entirely. Not because you do not care, but because you are committed to your future. You cannot afford to stay in environments that weaken your discipline. At the same time, discipline also requires intentional connection. You must seek out individuals who challenge you, who inspire you, who hold you to a higher standard. People who are disciplined, focused, and purpose-driven. Because when you surround yourself with such individuals, their energy elevates you. They push you to grow. They challenge your excuses. They reinforce your discipline. And over time, you begin to adopt their mindset, their habits, and their standards. This is the power of association. Now, let us consider your digital environment. In today's world, this may be the most influential environment of all. What you consume online, what you watch, what you read, what you listen to, has a direct impact on your thinking. And the danger is this: digital consumption is often passive. You are absorbing information without even realizing how it is shaping you. If your digital environment is filled with distractions, entertainment, negativity, and comparison, then your mind will become scattered, restless, and unfocused. You will struggle to concentrate. You will lose clarity. You will feel overwhelmed because your mind is being overloaded with information that does not serve your purpose. Discipline requires intentional consumption. You must decide what enters your mind. Not everything deserves your attention. Not everything deserves your time. You must filter your inputs. Choose content that educates you. Choose content that inspires you. Choose content that aligns with your goals. And be ruthless with distractions. Limit your time on platforms that drain your energy. Remove sources of negativity. Avoid content that leads to comparison and self-doubt. Because whatever you repeatedly consume will eventually influence how you think. And how you think determines how you act. Now, let us go even deeper into your mental environment. This is the environment within you. Your thoughts, your beliefs, your internal dialogue. Because even if your external environment is perfect, If your internal environment is negative, undisciplined, and chaotic, you will still struggle. Your mind is constantly speaking to you. It tells you what you can do. It tells you what you cannot do. It reminds you of your past. It shapes your expectations for the future. And if your internal dialogue is filled with doubt, fear, and limitation, then your actions will reflect that. Discipline requires mental awareness. You must observe your thoughts. You must challenge negative beliefs. You must replace limiting ideas with empowering ones, because your mind is like a garden. If you do not intentionally plant it of seeds, weeds will grow automatically. Negative thoughts, doubts, fears, these are natural. But discipline is choosing not to entertain them. It is choosing to focus on possibility instead of limitation. It is choosing to believe in growth instead of accepting stagnation. This is not easy because your mind will resist change. It will try to pull you back into familiar patterns of thinking, but you must persist. You must train your mind, just as you train your body. Now, here is a critical truth you must understand. You cannot live a disciplined life in an undisciplined environment. If your surroundings are constantly pulling you toward distraction, laziness, and negativity, then you will always be fighting an uphill battle. But when your environment is aligned with your goals, discipline becomes easier. Your space supports your focus. Your people support your growth. Your inputs support your mindset. Everything begins to work together. And this is where momentum is created. Because discipline is not just about effort. It is about alignment. When your environment is aligned with your purpose, you reduce resistance. You eliminate unnecessary obstacles. You create conditions that make success more likely. This is not about perfection. It is about intention. You do not need a perfect environment, but you do need a supportive one. You must be proactive. Do not wait for your environment to change, create it. Do not adapt to what is around you, shape it. Because if you do not take control of your environment will take control of you. And that is a dangerous place to be. So be brutal. Be intentional about your space. Be selective about your relationships. Be disciplined about your consumption. Be aware of your thoughts, because everything around you and within you is influencing you. And when you take control of your environment, something powerful happens. You begin to operate at a higher level naturally. You do not have to force discipline. It becomes a part of your lifestyle. You do not have to fight distractions. They are minimized. You do not have to struggle for focus. It becomes easier because you have designed a life that supports your success. And that is how you win consistently. Becoming accountable to yourself is one of the most powerful and most uncomfortable forms of discipline you will ever embrace, because it removes the one thing most people rely on to protect their ego: excuses. You see, as long as you have someone or something else to blame, you can avoid responsibility. You can point to your past, your environment, your circumstances, or other people and say, "This is why I am where I am." And for a moment, that may make you feel better. It may protect your pride. It may ease the discomfort of facing the truth. But it also keeps you stuck, because the moment you give responsibility away, you also give power away. And without power, you cannot change anything. Accountability, therefore, is not about blame, it is about ownership. It is about reclaiming control over your life by accepting that your choices, your actions, and your responses are ultimately yours to manage. Now, let us be clear. There are things in life you cannot control. You cannot control where you were born. You cannot control what has happened to you. You cannot control every circumstance that comes your way, but you can control how you respond. You can control your effort. You can control your mindset. You can control your decisions moving forward. And that is where your power lies. Discipline begins the moment you stop asking, "Why is this happening to me?" and start asking, "What can I do about it?" That shift from victimhood to responsibility is transformational, because when you adopt a victim mindset, you are always waiting. Waiting for things to change. Waiting for someone to help you. Waiting for the right opportunity, and in that waiting, time passes and nothing improves. But when you take responsibility, you become proactive. You stop waiting and you start acting. You stop complaining and you start creating. You stop blaming and you start building. This is the mindset of a disciplined individual. Now, here is where accountability becomes truly brutal. You must be honest with yourself, not partially honest, not selectively honest, completely honest. And honesty can be painful because it forces you to confront things you would rather avoid. It forces you to admit when you are wasting time. It forces you to acknowledge when you are being lazy. It forces you to recognize when you are not living up to your potential. And most people avoid this level of honesty because it challenges their identity. It is easier to believe that external factors are holding you back than to admit that your own habits, decisions, and behaviors are the real issue. But growth begins where denial ends. If you cannot tell yourself the truth, you cannot change your reality because you cannot fix what you refuse to face. So accountability starts with self-evaluation. You must regularly examine your life. Where are you right now? What are you doing daily? Are your actions aligned with your goals? And if the answer is no, you must be willing to admit it, without excuses, without justification, without defensiveness. This is not about self-criticism, it is about self-criticism. It is about self-awareness. Because awareness creates clarity, and clarity creates direction. Once you see the truth, you can begin to change it. Now, another important aspect of accountability is keeping your word to yourself. Many people make promises to themselves. I will wake up early. I will start working out. I will focus on my goals. But then they don't follow through. And every time they break a promise to themselves, something happens internally. They begin to lose trust in themselves. They begin to doubt their own words. They begin to question their own commitment. And over time, this weakens their discipline. Because discipline is built on trust that you will do what you said you would do. If you cannot trust yourself, then your plans become meaningless. Your goals become empty. Your intentions lose their power. That is why accountability requires consistency. It requires you to treat your own commitments with the same seriousness you would give to others. If you tell someone else you will do something, you feel obligated to follow through. You do not want to disappoint them. You do not want to damage your reputation. But when it comes to yourself, you become flexible. You negotiate. You delay. Why? Because there is no immediate consequence. But the consequences are there. They are just delayed. Every broken promise weakens your discipline. Every excuse reinforces inconsistency. Every delay pushes your goals further away. So be brutal with your commitments. Do not promise what you cannot deliver. But once you make a commitment, honor it. Even when it is inconvenient, even when it is uncomfortable, even when no one else is watching. Because accountability is not about external validation, it is about internal integrity. It is about becoming a person who can be trusted by yourself. Now let us talk about excuses. Excuses are the enemy of accountability. They are the stories you tell yourself to justify why something was not done. And the more you rely on them, the more they become a habit. I didn't have time. I was too tired. Something came up. But let us be honest, most of the time, these are not reasons. They are choices. Because if something is truly important, you will find a way to make time. You will find the energy. You will adjust your priorities. Excuses simply reveal what you value more in that moment. And discipline requires you to confront that. It requires you to ask yourself, am I truly committed or am I just interested? Because interest produces excuses. Commitment produces results. When you are committed, you do not look for reasons to stop you. Look for ways to continue. You adapt, you adjust, you persist. And that persistence is what creates progress. Another powerful dimension of accountability is tracking your behavior. What gets measured gets managed. If you are not aware of how you are spending your time, how you are using your energy, and what actions you are taking daily, then you are operating without direction. You may feel busy, but you are not necessarily productive. Discipline requires visibility. You must know what you are doing. Track your habits. Track your progress. Track your results. Because when you can see your patterns, you can identify what needs to change. And when you identify what needs to change, you can take action. Without tracking, you are guessing. With tracking, you are managing. Now, let me take you even deeper. True accountability means that you do not need external pressure to perform. You do not need someone watching you. You do not need deadlines imposed by others. You do not need consequences enforced externally. You operate with discipline because you have internal standards. You have decided who you are. You have decided how you will act, and you hold yourself to that standard daily. This is maturity. This is self-leadership, because at the highest level, discipline is not about rules. It is about identity. It is about becoming the type of person who naturally does what must be done, not because you are forced to, but because it is who you are. An identity is built through repeated action. Every time you hold yourself accountable, you reinforce that identity. Every time you follow through, you strengthen that belief. Every time you choose responsibility, you grow. But every time you make excuses, you weaken it. So understand this: accountability is not a one-time decision. It is a daily practice. It is something you must choose again and again. There will be days when it is easier to blame others. Days when it is easier to justify your actions. Days when it is easier to avoid the truth. But discipline demands that you choose responsibility anyway. Because the moment you take full ownership of your life, everything changes. You stop feeling powerless. You stop feeling stuck. You stop waiting. And you start moving. You start making decisions. You start taking action. You start creating results. Because now you understand that your life is not determined by what happens to you, but by what you choose to do with it. So be brutal with your accountability. Tell yourself the truth, even when it hurts. Keep your word, even when it is hard. Eliminate excuses, even when they feel justified. Because when you master accountability, you unlock something powerful. You become in control. And when you are in control, you are unstoppable. Committing to consistency over intensity is one of the most misunderstood yet most powerful disciplines you can develop in your life, because most people are addicted to intensity. They are drawn to big actions, dramatic changes, sudden bursts of motivation. They want to feel like they are doing something significant, something powerful, something immediate. But here is the truth most people don't want to accept. Intensity impresses, but consistency transforms. You can have one powerful day, one productive week, one inspired moment. But if it is not sustained, it means nothing. Because success is not built in moments of excitement. It is built in seasons of repetition. And repetition is not glamorous. It is quiet. It is often boring. It feels slow, but it is effective. You see, life responds to patterns, not performances. One day of discipline will not change your life. One week of effort will not define your future. But what you do every single day, consistently, intentionally, repeatedly, that is what shapes your results. That is why discipline is not about doing something extraordinary once. It is about doing the ordinary things extraordinarily well, over and over again. Now, let us confront the problem. Most people start strong, but they don't last. They begin with excitement. They set goals. They create plans. They feel motivated. And for a few days, maybe even a few weeks, they are fully committed. They wake up early, they work hard, they stay focused. But then something happens. The excitement fades, the motivation declines, the reality of effort sets in. And suddenly, what once felt exciting now feels exhausting. And this is where most people stop. Not because they are incapable, but because they were relying on intensity instead of building consistency. Intensity is emotional. Consistency is intentional. Intensity depends on how you feel. Consistency depends on what you decide, and feelings will always change. There will be days when you feel strong, days when you feel weak, days when you feel inspired, days when you feel tired. If your actions depend on your feelings, then your progress will always be unstable. But when you commit to consistency, you remove that instability. You create a standard. You decide, this is what I will do regardless of how I feel. And that decision becomes your anchor. Now let me explain something powerful about consistency. Consistency compounds. Just like interest in a bank account, small actions repeated over time begin to multiply. They build upon each other. They create momentum. One workout may not change your body. 1 hour of study may not transform your knowledge. One day of focus may not produce massive results. But when these actions are repeated daily, they begin to accumulate, and over time the results become undeniable. This is the law of accumulation. Small disciplines, practiced consistently, lead to great achievements. But here is the challenge: consistency requires patience. And patience is difficult because you live in a world that celebrates speed. Everything is instant, everything is fast, everything is designed to give you immediate results. So when you start working towards something and you don't see quick progress, you begin to doubt. Is this working? Should I try something else? Am I wasting my time? And that doubt leads to inconsistency. You stop, you switch, you restart, and every time you restart, you lose momentum. You go back to the beginning. This is why many people stay stuck, not because they lack effort, but because they lack consistency. They never stay committed long enough to see results. But disciplined individuals understand something different. They understand that progress is often invisible in the beginning. They trust the process. They continue working even when results are not immediate. They stay committed even when progress feels slow, because they know that consistency eventually produces breakthroughs. And when those breakthroughs come, they appear sudden, but they are actually the result of long-term effort. Now, let us go deeper. Consistency is not just about repeating actions. It is about building habits. A habit is something you do automatically, without resistance. At the beginning, discipline requires effort. You must push yourself. You must remind yourself. You must stay conscious of your actions. But over time, as you repeat those actions, they become squash, vice They become automatic. And this is where life becomes easier. Because now you do not have to rely on motivation or willpower. Your habits carry you. You wake up and do what needs to be done, not because you feel like it, but because it is part of who you are. This is the ultimate goal of discipline, not to force yourself forever, but to build a system that sustains you. And systems are built through consistency. Now, here is another important truth. Consistency requires simplicity. Many people fail because they make things too complicated. They create complex plans. They set unrealistic goals. They try to change everything at once. And because it is overwhelming, they cannot sustain it. They burn out. Discipline is not about doing everything. It is about doing the right things consistently. It is better to do a small action every day than to do a large action occasionally. It is better to take one step daily than to take 10 steps once and then stop. Because small steps, when repeated, lead to big results. So you must simplify your approach. Focus on what truly matters. Identify the key actions that move you forward and commit to doing them daily, no matter how small they seem, because small does not mean insignificant. Small, repeated actions are powerful. Now, let us address another challenge: boredom. Consistency can feel boring. Doing the same things every day, following the same routine, repeating the same actions, it lacks excitement. And this is where many people lose interest. They crave novelty. They want something new. They want stimulation. But discipline requires you to embrace repetition, to find value in the process, not just the outcome. Because if you only enjoy the results, you will struggle to stay consistent. You must learn to appreciate the work itself, to take pride in showing up, to find satisfaction in progress, to value the process of growth. This is a mindset shift, because when you begin to love the process, consistency becomes easier. You are no longer chasing results, you are living your purpose daily. Now let me speak to another critical aspect: resilience. Consistency does not mean perfection. There will be days when you miss, days when you fall short, days when things do not go as planned. And if you are not careful, these moments can break your consistency. You miss one day and you feel like you have failed. You fall behind and you lose motivation. And then you stop completely. But disciplined individuals think differently. They understand that missing once is a mistake, but missing twice is a habit, so they recover quickly. They do not dwell on failure. They do not make excuses. They simply return to the routine, because consistency is not about never falling. It is about always getting back up. This is what creates long-term success. Now, let me bring this to a powerful conclusion. When you commit to consistency over intensity, you are choosing sustainability over excitement. You are choosing long-term results over short-term satisfaction. You are building a life that is stable, focused, and productive. You are removing the unpredictability of motivation and replacing it with the reliability of discipline. And over time, this creates something powerful: Momentum. Momentum makes everything easier. When you are consistent, you build confidence. When you are consistent, you build trust in yourself. When you are consistent, you build progress. And progress fuels motivation. So now, instead of waiting to feel motivated, your results begin to motivate you. And that creates a cycle of growth, a cycle of discipline, a cycle of success. So be brutal with your consistency. Do not rely on feelings. Do not chase intensity. Do not wait for the perfect moment. Show up every day. Do the work every day. Stay committed every day. Because in the end, it is not what you do occasionally that defines you. It is what you do consistently. And when you master consistency, you do not just improve your life, you transform it permanently.